We love electric vehicles at WhichEV, obviously, but most of them are not much good if you have a family with more than 3 kids, or if you have a football team, or if you're in a polygamous relationship with multiple families. In those cases, what you need is this, the Citroen e-SpaceTourer. It's got 8 seats, and that's enough even for an Amish family. Before we tell you more about the Citroen e-SpaceTourer, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Obviously, while the e-SpaceTourer could be for an Amish family that has decided to upgrade from the horse and cart, it's more likely to be a vehicle you buy for commercial passenger transportation. This is a car for city taxi use or airport runs. You wouldn't exactly call it a pretty car though. It's decidedly innocuous and generic. The front has Citroen's current design motif of integrating the logo with the grille. But really, there's not much to talk about regarding the e-SpaceTourer's design. It's a van and looks like one. It's functional. There are actually 2 versions of the SpaceTourer, the XL and the M, but you can only get the M in electric. Otherwise, you have to choose between 2 different flavours of turbo diesel, manual and automatic. And you guessed it, since this is a car from Stellantis, that electric drivetrain consists of a 50 kilowatt-hour battery and 136 HP motor, exactly the same as pretty much every other Peugeot, Vauxhall, Opel and DS Automobiles EV. I suppose Stellantis is making the most out of development costs. There are 3 trim levels available with the SpaceTourer: Business, Feel and Flair. However, the Flair isn't available with the e-SpaceTourer. The Feel is only £600 more than the Business. As I will discuss later in this video, whichever trim you choose, the price means you won't get any grant from the UK government anymore. The Feel is a worthwhile upgrade as it adds electric front windows, rear air conditioning vents and dual zones, plus 17-inch wheel covers that look better than the 16-inch ones on the Business. And rear parking sensors. A reversing camera is a hefty £840 extra for both trims, which also adds front parking sensors and blind spot monitoring. There's a safety pack with additional features for £600 more. Then various glass tints cost £180, curtain airbags are £250, and this is the big one, the sat nav is not standard, it's £400. The basic colour is white, but there are 6 sober beige, grey, brown and black options. The only more racy shade is called tourmaline orange. All the colour upgrades cost £545 and our vehicle came in cumulus grey. Neither of the electric trims come with keyless entry, so I'm going to have to press the key to get in. The most significant feature of the e-SpaceTourer is the 8 seats, which are arranged in 3 rows. The front ones are accessed via regular car doors. Interior options only include cloth, not leather, although the colour is different depending on whether you have the Business or Feel trim. The driver's seat is comfortable enough with a decent amount of headroom and a certain amount of knee room, and the passenger seat is exactly the same. As you can see, adjustment is entirely mechanical. There's no central cubby. There is a space for you to put your smartphone, but that isn't a wireless charger, so you're going to have to use the USB plug or 12-volt socket to charge your phone. There is a reasonably sized glove compartment in the top, but also this cubby down below, and it has another 12-volt charger inside it and a key slot for you to turn off the passenger airbag. One thing that is missing though is any kind of central cup holder. However, there is a slot here and one on the other side for you to put your hot drink. Maybe not as convenient as a central one though. And you've got another space up here for documents. The rear seats are accessed by a large sliding door which slots into place like this. Due to COVID restrictions and the fact that I don't have a particularly large family and they wouldn't help me do this video anyway, I'd like to introduce you to WhichEV's latest staff member, Karen, who's going to help me with the rest of this video. As you can see, there's plenty of room on these seats for me to sit next to Karen, and in fact if we had her sister Grimes with us, she could also sit here, so there's plenty of room for 3 adults to sit side by side on this bench seat. Knee room and headroom are very good for passengers in the back, although knee room is not that important for Karen because she doesn't have any knees. In this trim level, rear passengers have these vents for the air conditioning up in the top of the roof, and you also get controls for at least for the middle passengers. However, getting into the rear of this car is not quite so easy. Oops, I nearly took off Karen's head there. As you can see, it's a little bit harder for me and Karen to climb in the back here. However, once you're here, the headroom's still excellent, and if you adjusted these seats forward a bit, you'd have a decent amount of knee room as well. We've just put the middle row forward here so you can see that, again, In the rear set of seats, there's just as much room for 3 adults to sit in a row. Karen and I are sitting quite happily together. Aren't we, Karen? She's fallen asleep. The middle row of seats do get their own magazine holder for your kids to put their copy of the Financial Times in, or whatever it is kids read these days. They also get a picnic table with a little cup holder, which is kind of handy for that kind of aircraft experience. But the people at the very back don't get a magazine holder, and nor do they get the picnic table. Middle seat passengers also get this handy 220 volt output, so if you want to run a laptop in the back seats, that's good. There's also a 12 volt output, but no USB. The rearmost passengers also get a single 12 volt output, and there's a cup holder for each of the outer passengers as well. With the field trim, you can see that the rearmost passengers also get their own air vents. All the rear seats have ISOFIX points, so if you have 6 children in chairs, you could fit them all in. But the killer feature of this car is you can get 6 adults comfortably in the back and 8 adults in total, even if some of them are a bit of a dummy. Since this is a van aimed at things like airport runs, you'd hope there'd be quite a bit of space in the back, and there is. If you take off this shelf, this is apparently 989 litres of space, which is about the same as an average hatchback with its rear seats down. If you do drop the rear seats down, which can go in a, you can do them individually, one at a time, this space with the seats in place is actually 1,384 litres, which is almost as much as a Kia e-Niro or an average estate car with the rear seats down. And you've still got room for 5 passengers, or 5 adults rather, including the driver. If you're picking up several double mattresses from IKEA, you can of course drop the next row of seats down as well. Now if you need more space than that, allegedly you could remove these seats tool-free. And while removing the single one is quite handy, this one's really heavy and I can't really do it on my own, and Karen is not helping. Karen, will you help? God's sake, she's never helping me out. If you do remove these seats and leave the other row, you get around 2,500 litres, which is starting to be a really large size, and you can remove those as well. And then you get a van with around 4,000 litres of space, which is, you know, if you need to do seriously hefty deliveries, there's a lot of space in the back here. In terms of absolute packing space, that 4,000 litres is almost twice as much as a Tesla Model X with the rear seats down. The maximum weight you can carry is 1,000 kilograms. If there's one Achilles heel of the Citroen e-SpaceTourer, it's that Stellantis 50 kilowatt hour battery is a bit meagre for a van this size. It only gives you 148 miles of WLTP range. However, DC charging up to 100 kilowatts is supported. This will replenish back to 80% in 32 minutes. With a standard 7.4 kilowatt AC wall box, it takes 7.5 hours for 100% capacity. This vehicle also supports 11 kilowatt AC, and if you use that, you can replenish the whole battery in 4 hours 45 minutes. The limited range on that 50 kilowatt hour battery means that this car is fairly expensive. On a 14p per kilowatt hour supply, it costs a reasonably expensive 4.7p per mile, although that's a lot cheaper still than either of the turbo diesel versions. Wind resistance clearly does play quite a big factor in a car like this. We noticed that while the range was pretty good around cities, it did drop more noticeably when we were on motorways. The amount of space in this front bay really shows that this car also has a diesel version, because you'd need more space for that kind of motor. The extremely retro thing about this car is that you actually need a physical key that you push in to get it to start. You also don't get any controls on this very standard steering wheel. However, you do get stalks for lights, for windscreen wipers, indicators obviously, and this one is for the cruise control. Behind the steering wheel you get a fairly conventional set of dials. On the left there's a speedometer, on the right is a dial which is showing you whether you're producing power or regenerating, and then there's a trip meter in the middle. Then you get some more dials at the top as well, battery health, etc. Although you obviously get a numeric readout of range down the bottom as well. The drive modes are operated with this rocker here, so you pull down once for drive, up for reverse, and then a little bit for neutral as well. You get a button for extra regenerative B mode. This changes between normal, eco and power, engine powers, and then this button here puts you back in park. And if you drop your hand to the side, there's an electronic parking brake. The air conditioning has its own separate controls, and as you can see, they're dual zoned. At this point, we would normally start to talk about the sat-nav, but as you can see, this car doesn't have one. Just to remind you, that's a £400 extra in this car. However, you do get the usual array of car functions. There's DAB and FM radio. You can go through the settings. There's a bunch of different apps. You can look at photos of your kids. But perhaps more importantly, there is support for Android Auto and also Apple CarPlay as well. And that means that you could set up your phone and have the sat-nav from that actually appear on the screen here. First thing we should mention is that this is a van and it drives like a van. However, it doesn't feel sluggish even in eco mode. It pulls away reasonably well. It's not very fast, taking 13.1 seconds to reach 60 miles an hour. However, that's not too bad for a van. The top speed is 84 miles an hour, which is perfect for motorways, although with a limited range you won't be driving from London to Newcastle, at least not without plenty of stops. The ride is adequately soft and the handling is smooth enough. It's a van. You're not getting driving pleasure, but you're not getting driving irritation either. I drove the e-SpaceTourer a fair bit around tight London roads like this. I know it's big and you have to be careful when weaving through parked cars in tight traffic. It's relatively intuitive. The all-round visibility is really good. You do have to be a bit careful with parking and three-point turns, however, as this version doesn't come with the cameras, just rear parking sensors. Standard safety is the usual ABS plus driver and front passenger front and side airbags. There is a standard non-adaptive cruise control system which we showed you is controlled by an extra stalk on the side of the steering wheel. If you want more safety features, you're going to need the £840 Visio Park 1 safety pack, which alongside with the reversing camera also includes blind spot detection. An extra £600 safety pack adds lane departure warning, speed limit detection and adaptive speed control. It also adds driver attention alerts and smart beam headlights. As we said before, the e-SpaceTourer is too expensive to receive the reduced UK government plug-in grant. So as you will have astutely guessed, it costs more than £35,000. In fact, it costs a lot more. The basic business version is £48,600 and the feel we have here is closer to £50,000. We should point out that the basic diesel manual version of this is £11,600 less, and even the auto diesel version with a more powerful diesel engine is nearly £8,000 less. So you are paying a lot for electric and you'll have to do a lot of miles to offset this with a cheaper electric running cost. On the plus side, you won't have to pay ULEZ or congestion charge in London, which can save you a lot more money quickly. Congestion charge alone is £15 a day, although obviously the diesels won't pay ULEZ either. So if you're running the e-SpaceTourer as a London airport run taxi, you could make up the difference in price in just a couple of years. You're also not paying any VED, benefit in kind will be minimal, and insurance group of 38E is reasonable for a car in this class. The basic warranty is 3 years or 60,000 miles, which is reasonable but not that generous. You also get the typical 8-year, 70%, 100,000 mile warranty on the battery separately. This seems like an expensive van when a Tesla Model 3 long range is about the same price, but they're obviously completely different vehicles for completely different applications. You couldn't fit an Amish family in a Tesla, and if Karen is bringing her buddies, including Grimes, on a night out, they wouldn't all fit. Even though it's big, when you're driving around in close quarters, it feels fairly nimble actually. We're just going to do a 3-point turn here so you can kind of get a sense of what that feels like. Although you don't have a reversing camera, these really large wing mirrors and really big mirrors. Also, there's another little mirror in the top here as well that helps. Means actually turning around isn't too bad. Turning circle, no worse than you'd expect for a van this long. There aren't that many options for passenger electric vehicles. The Nissan e-NV200 springs to mind, which is a bit cheaper but only has 7 seats and has a lower range. So the e-SpaceTourer is fairly unique. The sub 150 mile range does have limitations, but it's enough for city use and airport runs. If you're a taxi driver working in a city that charges a daily fee for petrol and diesel vehicles, it does make some sense despite the high purchase price. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment on it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay Karen, let's get you strapped in. We need to go and see Grimes now.